All right, so we're going to begin. This is Shema. This is Shema Parents Training. So everybody say Shema.
Shema.
Shema. Okay, now, hey, you speak Hebrew now. You're now speaking Hebrew. This is a Hebrew word, and we're going to go into like the full, not full, but a more complete understanding of how this word is used, and in the Bible, and so you'll see like how it's used in different contexts. But I want to first kind of make a case for why we're studying this. Okay, why is this like just so powerful? Why is it worth our time to take a look at this, right, from God's Word? So we think, yeah, well, okay, so this is like God's view on parenting. Let me just show you like how incredible this is, all right? So you all recognize this? Okay, so this is like the original, well, it's a rendering, but it's the original Solomon's temple. The temple in Jerusalem, this is the first temple, okay? So if you know some history, there were two. But let me tell you the story. So this was the center of Jewish religious life for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it was built around 957 BC, so it's like 1000 BC, just like 1000 BC, by King Solomon. So David sort of started the process, but the Lord said, no, Solomon, I want you to build it. But the point is that this represented to the Jewish people the presence of God with them. Okay, but something very, very bad happened. The people of Israel were overrun. So they basically just forgot the Lord. They, didn't really obey His laws. So they broke, the commandments. They didn't live for Him. Didn't follow Him, and this kind of opened the door for invasion into their nation. And so the nation of Israel was taken over by the Babylonians. This took place in the year 586 BC, and that temple was burned to the ground. So it basically was just toppled, flattened. Okay. Now this is like absolutely horrific, because again, this represents the presence of God with the people of Israel. So if this is gone, what does that mean? God's gone, right? And the people are thrown into exile. Now what you need to know is anytime, this is kind of like a strategy. It's almost like an ancient like military strategy, like military stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Ancient military strategy to basically render your enemies useless is to send them into exile. So there are other peoples, not necessarily sent into exile, but there are other peoples who just cease to exist, like the Amalekites. We don't know where they are anymore. The Hittites, the Hivites, mosquito bites, we still have those, okay? But the other, groups, Amorites and so forth, these societies, these civilizations no longer exist. Well, that's exactly what should have happened to the people of Israel. This is what we need to understand. Because they were uprooted from their land and they were sent to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. The whole idea is to absorb them into Babylonian society, so as a people, they no longer exist. However, within Babylonian society, they just continued to exist. They didn't lose their culture, they didn't lose their language. It was slightly adjusted a little bit, but okay, so we're gonna see, but how is this possible? So anyway, 70 years later, they come back out of exile. Long story short, they're brought back out of exile. Now this is like a resurrection from the dead. This is how miraculous and supernatural this is. But God brings them out of exile and they reform as a nation and they rebuild the temple. So this is the second temple. King Herod, it's called Herod's temple because he took that original, the second temple, and just kind of like refurbished it a little bit, kind of made it more, spiffier, kind of made it more cool, They wanted to build it up a little bit. But anyway, so they built it back up again. But something terrible happened. The same thing happened as the last time. Okay? That temple was destroyed. Okay? So that happened again. The second temple was destroyed. This time, not 586 BC, but in 70 AD, this temple was destroyed. Okay? Now, it was so this time it was done by the Romans, not the Babylonians. Okay, but it's completely leveled, and to this day it does not exist. But I want to show you this arch, okay, or ark, okay. This is called the Ark of Titus, and this is in Rome. And what they would do is they would like pass through it as kind of like conquering heroes, right? Okay, now very, very interesting, right? If you look like inside the ark, you'll see this, an ancient kind of like carving in the stone. Now look what you see there. That's a Jewish menorah. What this is depicting is the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. It's archaeological evidence that that's what happened to that temple. It was destroyed. And they're carrying off artifacts, you know, like everything that was in that temple. I'm not sure, it looks like a box. Could be the Ark of the Covenant. Oh my gosh, right? I mean, it was a very, very horrible day. And what's interesting is that the second, so this is all like just God's hand. You can see the orchestration. But the second temple was destroyed on the same day as the first temple was destroyed. That day is the 9th of Av. And it's like the day that the Jews remember the 9th of Av, right? So we can't be disobedient. We can't like forget our God. Because remember, the 9th of Av is the worst day in Jewish history. And what's interesting is so many other things happened on the 9th of Av against the Jewish people. That's just like the reminder day. Like, here's what happens when we don't follow God. But anyway, so the second temple is destroyed. And all the people are scattered. And so that's 70 AD, right? Now, you do remember World War II. These are the Nazis. You recognize that guy over there with the mustache, right? Little under. That's Hitler. And these guys, for whatever reason, decided that hey, come on in. Hey, Lara. Yeah, sure, come on in.
You need what's yours?
No,
right
yeah,
there, behind you.
Right there?
Oh,
Yeah. No, yeah, not at all. Yeah. Oh, we got a special treat.
We're hanging
No,
out
no
with
problem,
the
no
kids
problem.
tonight.
Yeah, great, wonderful. You guys stay up here too.
Oh, I can see your screen.
Oh,
now.
yeah, can't see the screen. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, grab those. So we were just saying that that Israel experienced two temples that were destroyed. The first temple was destroyed 586 BC. The second temple destroyed in 70 AD. The first one by the Babylonians, the second one by the Romans. And so this is like the Ark of Titus, which is in Rome, which depicts the actual destruction of the second temple. You see the Jewish menorah there. So this is like actual historical evidence that it took place, and they recorded it there. And so the Jewish people are once again scattered, and they no longer have a nation. They have no country. They're just scattered all over the world to the four corners of the earth. Now, to add insult to injury, these guys show up on the scene, and these are the Nazis, right? And they decide that the problem with Germany, everything that took place in Germany, had to do with the Jews. They pinned it on the Jews. So the Jews had a problem with with the economy and all this kind of stuff. It's their fault. They turned German society against the Jews, and they came up with something called the final solution. And the final solution is basically the complete eradication of the Jews, and that's where we get the Holocaust. So they're already like a people without a nation. They have no place to go, right? They're all over. They're just living in like their own little communities, So there's a little Jewish community like in Germany, a little Jewish community in Poland, and so forth. No place to go. And then, on top of that, now they're being wiped out systematically. There's this whole plan to wipe them out. The final solution: wipe out all the Jews. And as we know, 6 million Jews were killed. In fact, if you're kind of interested in this, there's a new movie it might still be out in theaters. Anyone see this? Operation Finale. And Ben Kingsley plays Adolf Eichmann, who is one of the architects of the Holocaust. He was the one that basically gathered the Jews up and transported them, to incinerators and gas chambers or just like open ditches, and where there was just like wholesale, just like slaughtered. Okay, so like the absolute worst that can happen to your people is like, wow, these guys are almost like cursed. Like everyone's against them. They have no country. Every time they try to form together as a country, they just like get disbanded once again and exiled. And then on top of that, now they're being like, now they're facing genocide. But miracle of all miracles, right? I mean, this is a stunning turn of events. They come back together again. So at the end of World War II, the Allies win, right? Germany loses. So the guys that are doing the Holocaust, well, they're gone, right? And they're now being systematically hunted down. In fact, this movie is about how this guy was hiding in Argentina, and they went after him. I'm talking about the Israeli intelligence, the Mossad, went after this guy. I won't spoil the ending, but it's a great ending. I think I did spoil it, but anyway. Okay, so against all odds. So this is May 14th, 1948. The nation of Israel is back together again, which is absolutely insane. They reformed as a nation. So I don't know. I didn't do the math, but what's like 1948 minus 70? Can anyone do that like really fast? It's like almost 1900 years. I can't do it that fast in my head, but like it's like 1,800 and was it 72 or something like that? Anyway, it's or 62. It's like, can you imagine that? Almost 2,000 years. They've not had a nation. They've had no temple. They've been scattered all over the place, and now they come back together. And when they come back together, what's interesting is they still have, many of them, not all of them, but many of them have the same faith. They have the same faith that they did. And so 1948, the nation of Israel, and this is like a prophetic sign to us in modern times, by the way, that they're back. This is actually something that many theologians are looking at. They're saying, okay, we're very close to the end. And this is like the big prophetic sign that we are very close to the end. How close, I'm not really sure, but I'm not going to do dates. But look, this is what's going on in Israel right now. So, according to Christian Broadcast Network, and this is an article from just a few months ago, April the 18th, Jews are returning to Israel at a rate of approximately 2,000 per month. They call it Aliyah. Try saying that. Aliyah. Aliyah. So they're just moving back to Israel. Pretty cool. And there's like, just this past year, I guess not this year, but 2017, 3,600 Jews moved from America, and they went to Israel. And that they now regard Israel as their home. So they have like Jewish passports and Israeli citizenship. I don't know if they have dual citizenship. They probably have dual citizenship, right? But yeah, so they got their passports, right? So, do you find that? I mean, I find that just stunning. And we just like in 15 minutes just did this whole, thing where we just like summarized what took place to the nation of Israel. And they call it Aliyah. And by the way, Aliyah means to rise up, go up, or to like ascend. And so even like in ancient days, when they said I'm going to go to Israel, they would always say, I'm going up to Jerusalem, because Jerusalem's up on a hill. So so it has that connotation, but it also has the idea of I'm rising up to God as well. I'm going up to the holy city. Has that idea as well. So Aliyah has that idea. Okay, so here's our question. Okay, our question is how is it possible that Israel is the most successful and prosperous democracy in the Middle East, let alone that they exist? Again, I mean, the fact that they exist is also a miracle. But how is it that they're not just existing, but they're the strongest democracy in the Middle East? They're thriving. They're just doing fabulous. despite the fact that the temple was destroyed, rebuilt, and destroyed again, so this happened to them twice. After their nation was destroyed twice, so their nation was destroyed twice. After the people were scattered to the four corners of the earth, so they just completely disbanded as a people, and 6 million Jews were slaughtered in the Holocaust. Despite all that, they now regather, and what's fascinating is they still have that same faith in their, and they also revived the Hebrew language, which was once a dead language. It used to be dead. But what happened was when the Jews got regathered in Israel, of course they spoke different languages. Some were speaking German, some were speaking Russian. They're from everywhere, right? And they noticed that in certain pockets, they were actually speaking Hebrew, and they were going, "Hey, are you speaking Hebrew?" Because yeah, we still remember how to speak Hebrew. Oh my gosh, would you teach me? And then there was this grassroots movement of people who wanted to relearn the Hebrew language, and so today they all, that's the national language. So their language was revived as well, which is really, really insane. So the answer to our question is complex, but one of the big reasons is why we're here tonight. The Shema. Shema is one of the biggest reasons why Israel is where it's at today. Where you can just scatter all the people, you can even wipe out parts of their families, whole families and so on, and they still have faith, despite that. The Shema. So let's see if we can take a look at how the Shema is used in the Bible. Okay, that's how it looks like in Hebrew. So let me show you some statistics on the power of Shema. Okay, so sorry, it's the print's too small. Should have made it bigger, but less than 0.1% of Jewish men are in prison. You compare that with other groups. That is a tiny, tiny group of people that are in prison. Less than 0.1% of Jewish men in prison. 20% of professors at leading U.S. universities are Jewish, even though they're a really tiny minority in the country. 20% professors. 25% of Nobel Peace Laureates are Jewish. A third of U.S. millionaires are Jews. 40% of attorneys in New York and Washington, D.C. are Jewish. The percentage of Jewish households with annual income greater than $50,000 a year is double that of non-Jewish families. So they're doing something really powerful at home, and we want to get in on that. Okay. This is the fruit of parents who speak, this is part of the Shema, who speak blessing on their children on a regular basis. So, first of all, they got to come to dinner. And they're always sitting together. And they're gathered as a family. And when they do that, they speak blessing over their children. So they might, let's say they have a son named Shlomo. That's Solomon. Shlomo, we bless you. You're going to be a great lawyer one day. And then they go to a daughter. Let's say her name is Yamit, because that's the only female name I know off the top of my head. Yamit, you're going to be a wonderful teacher one day. And you're going to marry a rich man. They should say that, over their kid. Okay. And, Mordecai, you're going to be a businessman. We bless you to be a businessman. You're going to make millions and millions and millions of dollars and bless your mom and your dad. This is what it's like in their home. Pretty cool, right? Right? Okay. So, the following is how the word Shema is used in the Bible. So, in Deuteronomy 6:4, this is the key passage which we're going to study at length a little bit later on. Shema means to hear and obey. Everybody say, hear and obey. Hear and obey. Okay. That's what Shema means. So, this passage would say, and we'll see it a little bit later on. Shema Israel. Okay. Hear and obey, Israel. The Lord is your God. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. The Lord is your God. The Lord is one. So that means the Lord is our God in this passage where he's personal, he's engaged, he interacts with us. Okay? So the idea is God and we Shema. So we interact with God. Okay, so the idea of Shema is that we're interacting with a personal God. And we hear and obey him. Okay. And this Lord of ours, the Lord is Echad, which is diverse persons, a trinity, yet one. So, so Shlomo, you might become a lawyer, and Yimit's going to marry a wonderful businessman, and Mordecai's a businessman, and be a millionaire, and so. But we're all one family. There's a strong sense of unity, right? So God practices Shema with himself. So he himself has like a unity where he's interacting with himself, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And there's a unity within God himself. God's a family. And he embodies perfect Shema. Okay? Where God himself, in the being of God, he exists with perfect unity and love. And so we're going to base ourselves on him. We're going to pattern ourselves and our families after that. Shema is also found in Proverbs 20:12, that word, or a derivative of that word. And so this one's really basic. Ears that hear, ears that Shema, and eyes that see, the Lord has made them both. That's what Proverbs 20:12 says. Ears that hear, or ears that Shema, and the eyes that see. So in other words, the Lord designed you for Shema because he gave you 2 ears. So in this context, Shema means to actually, literally hear. That's what Shema means. Shema means you actually can hear with your ears. All right? That's what that means there. And then, Bereshit in Genesis 29:33, and this is the story when Leah gives birth to Simon. Okay? Now, Simon in the Hebrew, his name is Shimon. That's Shema. Okay? That's where you get Shimon. Shimon comes from the word Shema. And the reason why Leah was so insistent that his name is Shimon is because she believed this. The Lord has Shema that I am unloved by my husband Jacob, and so he blessed me, the Lord blessed me with a child. So in other words, she's saying, the Lord has hurt me. The Lord Shema me. So Shema means pay attention. Focus. Right? And Leah was saying, the Lord paid attention to me. The Lord was focused on me. So that's the word Shema there in Genesis 29:33. And then in Psalm 27:7, it says, Shema my voice, or hear my voice. When I call, O Lord, be merciful and answer. So we're asking God, so now it's like a request, asking God to Shema. We're asking God to act. We're saying, respond to what you've heard. So Shema means, Lord, respond to what you've heard. So there's that interaction once again, right? So Tehillim, it just means praise. And we're asking God to hear our voice and respond to us when we call. So that's what Shema means in this context. So we're just we're looking at different verses where the word Shema is used. Here's the Shemot. And in Exodus 19:5 it says, if you Shema me fully, okay, and typically the way that the word would appear in the text is Shema Shema. Okay, that means like emphatically, like listen fully, right? So when it's repeated, that means it's emphatic. So if you Shema me fully, Shema Shema, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. So when you see that, you see Shema, Shema. That means listen closely. You can try that on your kid tonight. Shema, Shema. That means listen closely. So it means to listen in order to keep covenant with God. It's very cool. Okay. So it's very intent. Listen, do you see kind of where we're going with this? It's pretty cool, right? There's a real emphasis on paying attention, listening, hearing, obeying, keeping in relationship, keeping the unity. You kind of see a pattern here, right? Here's another one. I'm sorry, this is the summary. So in Deuteronomy 6:4, it's hear and obey. In Proverbs 20:12, it's actually hearing with your ears. In Genesis 29:33, pay attention to or focus. Psalm 27:7, respond to what you've heard. And in Exodus 19:5, listen closely and keep covenant with your God. All of these words are, within the what we call the semantic domain of Shema. Okay, so when you say Shema, it means all these things, depending on how you use it. In the first part, we talked about like how incredibly powerful the Shema is. Jewish families practice Shema, whether they had a nation or not, whether they had a church or not, whether they had a temple or not. They were practicing Shema in their homes, okay? Like hiding from the rest of society, but at home, they're doing Shema. And now, we understand that when you do Shema, that means that kids, they're paying attention, right? They're listening. And parents and kids, they're listening to God. So you have this like wonderful picture of, regardless of your circumstance, so your nation is blown away. Hey, that's okay. We're going to be like, good in here. And we're going to stay focused on the Lord, regardless. Or, we're under attack, or the Nazis are after us. It doesn't matter. We're going to stay faithful to God. And so that's what's going on in Jewish homes. So very, very cool. Now, what's the outcome of Shema parenting? We're going to do in this last part, before we open it up for discussion, is we're going to talk about, when we say outcome, we're saying, what's the destination? Right? What's the destination? I was listening on the radio today. It's pretty cool. This guy was like critical of universities, because all they do at universities is give you maps. But a map is useless without a destination. So you can give a guy a whole bunch of maps, and they're beautiful maps. Ask him, where are you going? I don't know. I don't know where I'm going, but I got some nice maps. But it's God, right? And the Bible and church, they give you a destination, right? Along with your map. It's not just nice maps. And so we're going to talk about the destination. So what's the outcome? What's the desired outcome? What are we contending for? Okay? So if we do Shema properly at home, here's what's going to happen. Okay? And particularly, I'm saying this in the context of most of us, when we think of parenting, we don't feel successful at parenting. Does anyone feel like you're doing just a bang-up job? You're just doing outstanding. I mean, you are just a marvelous parent. You're just the perfect mom and dad. Wow. You should be teaching this class. Okay. Yuritsi raised her hand. Recruit her for the youth group. I mean, I'm standing up here. I don't feel like I should be teaching this class. Seriously. Oh my gosh. And so we don't feel qualified to be parents. We don't think we're succeeding. We believe we must be role models for our children, which is like, oh, that's heavy. Okay. And by the way, this is my family origin. So it's like my brothers and my one sister there, and there's me with hair, and there's mom and dad. So back in 1999, when the church first began. So the church had not begun yet. It was the month before the church began. So the church began in April. This picture was taken March 25th, when the church began on Easter of April. So I don't know what I was doing home in California, but there I was. So we don't feel successful. It feels like we're trying to draw straight lines with crooked sticks. So we want our kid to be straight, but we're crooked. Our lives are crooked. Kind of like, follow my example. Well, maybe not. So, how many crooked sticks? How many crooked sticks do we have in the room? How many? Crooked sticks. Okay.
It's like, do I say, not I say do?
yeah, exactly. And it's like it just sounds so hollow to us. But let me ask though: is the outcome of Shema parenting, is it about being a successful, qualified parent? Is it about trying to be this like supreme role model? Now, granted, we want those things. We want to be successful, qualified role models, right? No one would argue that those are important, but are these the outcome of Shema parenting? So on this first night that we're gathered together, we want to get this straight. What exactly is it that we're after? Is it that we become the perfect parent? Okay, and obviously you can see where I'm going with this. I don't think that's it. That despite where we're at, which is we're not trying to do a bad job, we just can't help it but mess up every now and then. There's something that we should keep our eyes on that's more important than us being perfect. That's the idea. Okay. So notice that God, the Father, He places His only begotten Son into the hands of less than perfect human parents, Joseph and Mary. There's young Messiah there. Anyone see Young Messiah, that movie? I love that movie, by the way. That is a great movie. Oh my gosh. If you have not seen it, you can get it for rent. It's called Young Messiah. And it's Jesus when he's like 7 or 8 years old. And of course, there's no account in the Bible of Jesus at 7 or 8 years old. There's one where he's born, Christmas, and then they fast forward to 12, when he's at the temple. And this is just like, it kind of like, hypothetically, what would it look like? So it's a pretty cool movie. So there's Joseph and Mary. And the point here is that God places His Son in the hands of human parents. And they're not perfect, right? So let's set aside any insecurity about parenting that we might have and discover what God the Father actually has in mind. So, in other words, let's not make it about us. Let's see what God the Father wants. Okay? And so, let's take a look at this passage. This is finally, we get to the actual Shema passage in the Bible. In the Hebrew, it sounds like this: Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Let's read it in English together. Ready? Go. Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you are at home, when you're on the road, and when you're going to bed, and when you're getting up. Okay, so very, very detailed instructions to moms and dads, right? So it begins with hear and obey, or listen, O Israel. Okay, the word Shema, which we now have a kind of broader understanding of. The Lord is saying, pay close attention. Let's interact. He's basically saying, work with me on this. Okay, and listen up. Okay, and he's saying, I'm going to interact. I'm going to Shema with you. So you and I are going to work on this together. This is huge. It's not like, here's a command, now you go make it happen, I'll see ya. No, it's like God is saying, I'm doing this with you. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. He's with us. How many of us ever, at home felt like, okay, it's up to me, I'm going to take charge of this situation. That's our first thought, right? That's what I do. So, my son, I have 2 sons. Mark was really a wonderful kid. I mean, all the kids are wonderful, obviously. I have to say that on tape. All the kids are wonderful. Mark, really easy. Rachel, she's the girl. Wide range of emotion, okay, but wonderful. I would say that Mark's emotional, range was like here. Rachel's emotional range is like here. Okay, so what that means is Mark was pretty much like, kind of the same like all the time, and Rachel was like, such a darling, and then like, oh my God. It's like, what the? How do I get her to stop crying? That kind of thing. So just a wide range, but still both wonderful. And Caleb also just such a great kid. But man, and I think because he's the baby, he could let her rip. I mean, he could just like get angry. He could get angry. And so I have to like, God bless you. So full disclosure, I did not necessarily do this with God. A lot of times I would just step in, and this is not all the time, okay? Just every now and then when it was just getting too loud in the house, just shut it down. Just like, stop this now. Just shut up. Shut up, go to your room, stop this right now. I just admit, I wasn't praying in that moment, I just wanted it to get under control. But on balance, and basically most of the time, the Lord is saying, make me a part of what you're doing. I'm there with you. And look at this. It's about loving the Lord your God, right? And he's saying this to everyone, parents and kids alike. Love him with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. Does that sound casual to you? Nothing casual about that, right? All your heart, all your soul, all your strength. So our homes are going to be defined by this. It's like, this is a home, right? Where, you're explaining, to the girls, the Akita family is a family that is all in. We love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our strength. And then Jesus in the New Testament would add all your mind as well, all your thinking. Just threw it in there because of the Greek culture, but same idea, okay? And so we want to land on that. Is getting there, okay? So we're getting close to understanding what the outcome actually is. Because it's not really about us being perfect parents and learning good techniques, although we're going to try to do that best as we can. But now you kind of get at the heart of what this is about, what the Shema is really about. And then you must commit yourself, right? So in other words, it doesn't matter whether you feel like it or not. It doesn't matter whether she really wants to listen or not, right? So my kid knows everything already, not listening to me. Well, commit yourself wholeheartedly, okay, to these commands, to what? Have conversations with your kids. You're going to basically have repetitive, ongoing conversations with your kid about their relationship with God. And so we're going to learn how to have those conversations. How to say things like, what do you think God is saying to you in this moment about this situation? Or what is God leading you to do? Well, you just tell me what to do. So, no, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You tell me what you think God wants you to do. Now, obviously, there are different conversations that you have with kids of different age. Okay, so when they get to high school, that's the kind of conversation you have. But when they're little kids, you just say, go to your room, because Daddy said so. Yes, there's not going to be any arguments. Okay. Yeah. We're going to church now. All right. Okay. Because they're small. Right? Once they turn somewhere in that high school age, it's now you can't make them. In fact, some of us are thinking well, my kid's in middle school, I can't make them. It's kind of getting there already. Okay. So, but we're committed to this. Look at it. It says, repeat them again. It kind of sounds more like Shema, Shema again, right? Like Shema, Shema. Repeat them again and again to your children. Okay. And then it gives you, 4 settings where this is going to happen. Talk about it when you're at home. Okay? Got it. So you're just hanging out at the house. You're talking like you're maybe standing outside in the yard and you're just having a conversation, about whatever. for me, it was usually talk about movies and then talk about God. It's typically how it happened in my house. Like, like, hey, you know, we're talking about Lord of the Rings, you know, and we're talking about like the movies, something the kids are interested in. You want to go, you know, we're going to see Lord of the Rings this Christmas. Yeah, okay, Dad, let's go watch it. And then afterwards, it's like, hey, did you notice, did you see Jesus in this movie? Really? Like, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, Dad. Yeah. Where's Jesus in this movie? There's actually at least 3. Can you pick them out? Let's see now. Well, Frodo was willing to give his life. That was kind of like Jesus. Yeah, right. That's good. Right. And isn't like Jesus kind of like a king? So that's Aragorn. Aragorn's like a king. And he came back. He's like the second coming of the king. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then Gandalf came back from the dead. He's kind of like Jesus too. That's right. Yeah. Of course, he had like a staff and everything. It looked like a messianic figure. You know, so you have these kind of interesting conversations like on a kid's level, right? So when you're at home, that's those kind of talks. And then when you're on the road, it could be like in the car when you're driving. Maybe not every single time, but as the Holy Spirit's prompting you, it's not just like, shut up back there, you know. Buckle your seatbelt. But you also can have a conversation with them, about, if you're coming back from church. So what do you think about church? So what did you learn in Sunday school today? And the children's art, that kind of conversation as you're driving in the car, right? It would be a very, very quick conversation because you guys live right there, right? But so that's setting number 2. Setting number 3, bedtime, right? Now, when the kids were small, how many of us are doing this, right? Kids are saying, Mom, Dad, it's time to go to bed now. Can you, the kids would always tell us, I don't know, it sounded weird now, but back then it was like, they would say, come and visit me, and they would want you to say, good night, and pray over them, and it's a great time to pray, right? So you're praying blessing over them, and you're visiting them, rubbing their back, and they're small, it's okay, good night, tuck them in, and you're blessing them again, right? Like a good Jewish mom. Right? So you're just blessing them again. So again, direct their attention to God. So they're going to bed, and then when they get up, so they're waking up, come to breakfast, especially when they're all at home. Like my kids are all gone now, but when they're all at home, sit down at breakfast, and then usually just have a quick prayer, and you pray like a real prayer, right, over them. Doesn't have to be long, and then you send them off to school. So the idea is, it's not just limited obviously to those 4 settings, but you get the idea. Notice synagogue's not in there, church is not in there, because it's kind of like, yeah, of course, you're going to talk about God in obvious settings. Synagogue's obvious, church is obvious. These settings, and this is the reason why they're highlighted, not so obvious, right? But the Lord is saying, get me in there, invite me into those conversations when you're doing this. And again, it's like we're going to be learning how to just make it very, very natural. So it's not forced. It's not like, oh, push that on me again, because they're going to say that, right? But you're going to be, use a lot of emotional intelligence. But anyway, so what is the final outcome of Shema parenting? So we're trying not to make it about us, how successful we are doing, qualified, how qualified we feel, how perfect a role model we are, that type of thing. Sometimes I feel like, and I think this is true, I think for me sometimes, especially as a pastor, that maybe I wanted them to turn out well because I didn't want them to embarrass the family, right? And so, boy, that's twisted. When you think about it. Or I want to be able to say, yeah, my kid's valedictorian. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's really about you, right? So that's just the wrong outcome. Where it's focused on us, what we can say to brag about our kids, right? Then raising your kids almost like idolatry. When you think about it, they become an idol. They're there really to make you look good, right? And so we want to like repent from all of that and say, that's not what we're doing this. Those are not the outcomes that we're looking for. Okay. So trying to raise a perfect child could be about pride. It could be more about us than it is about the children. Trying to save face, idolatry, right? So here's the final thing. What is the outcome then of Shema parenting? To connect the heart of your child with the love of the Father. So that's the outcome we're looking for. So can you see how even if you don't feel qualified, you don't feel successful, and you don't feel like you're doing everything right, can you see how if you just keep that your focus, you're doing great? Because even in those moments where you've made a mistake, and your kid knows it, and you know it, those can be really powerful. When you say, yeah, Daddy was wrong in that moment. That's not what God wanted. Can you forgive Daddy for what he said? Daddy lost his temper. Can you forgive Daddy? Because that really wasn't what God wanted, was it? No, I didn't think so either. Yeah, you're right about that. And in that moment, one of your quote-unquote failures just became a teachable moment for your child. To do what? To connect with the Father. And your kid goes, wow, my dad fears God. My dad knows God. My dad loves God. My dad was willing to admit he made a mistake. Or my mom was, willing to admit that she doesn't get it right every single time. And actually, that could be very, very powerful. So it's kind of cool what the Lord is asking us, right? To learn to love Him with all of our heart, our soul, our mind. Jesus would say mind, and strength, everything that we have. And so it's not, the expectation is not that you're going to have all the techniques right and make every conversation perfect and, do everything. But instead, it's like, okay, here's our heart. Our heart is to see if we can model for them how to connect with God, as imperfect as we are. And then to help them connect with the Father. So we want their heart to connect with the Father's heart. And this is not something that you and I can make happen. It's something we cooperate with God, right? To happen. He transforms the heart of your child. So we are constantly, actually, and this was like the very first thing I did with all my kids. The very first thing I did with all my kids was when they let you pick up the kid. They don't let you do that right away, but it was probably at home or probably at some point in the hospital. I would carry the child in my arms, and I would lift the child up like this. Let's say it's Mark, Rachel, or Caleb. And I would lift the child up to God and say, God, this is your child. Kind of a Kunta Kinte moment. I don't know if you saw Roots, but it was like, behold the only thing greater than yourself. But it was a sincere prayer. Lord, I'm over my head. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I can't do this without you. And it's kind of like the point, right? For you to feel over your head. To feel like the only way that your kid's going to turn out, the way God wants, is if God Himself intervenes, steps in. And that's what Shema means. To interact with Him. To listen very closely to what He has to say. To hear and obey Him. To focus, right, on what it is. So you can't be like, I got to go to work, or I got to go do this. No. This is what He's called you to do, right? Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we want to say thanks for this opportunity to gather together on this first night of Shema Parents Training to really examine what it is that you're asking us to do. What is the outcome? And it's really wonderful that this whole journey is going to drive us to our knees so that we turn to you to reach out to our children. We invite you to do that. To speak to our children, to interact with our children. And even now, right now, would you just commit your children to the Lord? To say, Lord, you gave us these wonderful gifts. Our children, each child is just this precious gift from you. But we confess, Lord, with all of our heart, that we cannot change them. We cannot transform them. Instead, this is making us incredibly dependent upon you to do that in our heart, in the heart of our children. And so we invite you to do that, to get a hold of our children. Just go ahead and just pray that. Lord, get a hold of my child. Have these moments where you speak to them in ways that is so personal to them. Because we know that we can't force it. We can't make it happen. And so we, as parents, we just rest in your loving arms. And we do not lose sight of the fact that we are your children and we love you and that you got this. So we want to begin, Lord, understanding exactly what it is that you're calling us to do. And we thank you for just how powerful this is. And the reason why the Shema is so powerful is because it's all about you, God. And nothing can stop you. And we want our parenting and the raising of our children to be a God thing. It's something that you are doing, and we're joining you in it. So thank you for the calling. Thank you for the blessing that our children are to us. And we just, right now in this moment, commit them to you. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.